What's going on, everyone? We are here for bracket breakdown. It's Selection Sunday. We're coming up to NCAA tournament time, and we're getting real excited about it. So I'm your host of the show today, Kenneth Cotterill, and I'm joined here today. Firstly, he's the co-owner of BCMG as well as the co-host of the Puckleheads podcast. That's Jhett Folk. How you doing, Paul?
What's going on, boys? Got the bracket out now and ready to talk about it. Let's go.
We also have from Stillwater, Oklahoma. He is the host of the Cordova College Corner. That's Davis Cordova. Davis, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Just got back from Kansas City, so we're doing great.
What was it like getting to experience some of those games live, Davis?
Well, I mean, I watched us beat West Virginia again live, so that was good. We'll talk more into that because we got absolutely snubbed on the 3-line. But you could tell that in person, you could tell that OSU just had not enough gas not as much gas as Texas did last night.
For sure. And we also have joining us, he's the co-host of the Frostbite podcast. That's Jhett Folk. Jhett, how you doing today?
Doing good. We're one step closer to the dance. I'm excited. We got the brackets out now, so I'm looking forward to making some picks.
Definitely. There's going to be a lot of brackets done for sure. Quick reminder to everyone to go and sign up for the Blue Collar Media Group Bracket Challenge. I'm going to be linking that in the comments for you guys right away here. So go and sign up now. Winner gets $200 cash, and there's no entry fee. So, I mean, it's free money, folks. You're definitely going to want to get in on our bracket challenge. But today's episode is sponsored by StatementGames. Go check them out at StatementGames.com. It's a free-to-play daily fantasy game. Pick 10 prop bets, rank them 10 through 1. If you get one right, then you get 10 points based off your rankings. And it's in contests of 8 to 12 people. It's definitely something that you're going to want to check out. So go and check out StatementGames.com. Mark's phenomenal over there at Statement Games. But let's get into talking about the bracket. And we're actually joined here as well by the host of the End of the Lab podcast. That's Ernest Silva. Ernest, how you doing, man? Oh, how's the connection going to be today?
Hey, guys. Just another popped in.
All right. So what are our overall thoughts on the bracket so far? Jhett, I'm going to go to you first. What did you think when you saw the bracket announced tonight?
Well, the first thing that came to mind for me was, holy cow, did they ever stack up the West? And I'm hearing that there's some pushback on that thought. Not everyone thinks it's as stacked as it could be. But yeah, looking at it from top to bottom, they're probably 11, 12 teams deep that could all go on serious runs if they get the right kind of basketball happening for them. So that was my first thought.
Paul, what about you? What did you think when you first saw the bracket come out?
Well, I have a team in it, so obviously I'm looking for them. And I really couldn't believe they got a 3. They haven't really been playing good basketball down the stretch. I kind of thought maybe they would go into the 5. But not only did they draw a 3, they drew a fairly easy pass. I mean, there's no easy pass, but, I mean, you got San Diego State. But besides that, the bottom half of that bracket is really not very scary at all. So that's where I was looking at.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I was very shocked to see West Virginia getting that 3 seed. We know that Davis definitely is surprised given that Oklahoma State beat them twice over the last couple of weeks, went all the way to the Big 12 final, including beating Baylor. Yet there's still a 4 seed in the tournament. So, yeah. Davis, I'll go to you next. What are your thoughts overall on the bracket?
Kenny, you're wrong. I'm not surprised. This is just the NCAA, okay? The NCAA hates Oklahoma State for no reason. Actually, there probably is a reason that no one knows about, but the NCAA just hates Oklahoma State. The Big 12 hates Oklahoma State. That game should have been played today before the bracket was released, so that both teams could have at least one day of rest, which is unfair. Actually, let me break it down real quick. 3 teams got an extra day off besides their opponent. They all 3 went 3-0, including Georgia Tech winning the ACC last night. Now, my first reaction was, why are we a 4 seed? Well, kind of have to look at the net. We're not great in the net. We're not good in the basketball rankings. But I will say I kind of like our path. I wanted to match up with Illinois, and now we get it in the Sweet 16. If they can get past Loyola Chicago. So
definitely, we've got LeBron to Chicago saying
Yeah.
I'm pissed off as an Illinois fan.
Yeah.
You guys should not
Oh,
be
yeah.
a 4.
Yeah.
I completely
shout out my
agree.
man Alex.
I completely agree. I'm very confused why. Maybe it has something to do with the postseason issues that you guys had, and maybe that's their way of punishing you. But I mean, it doesn't make it right. Every year there's definitely mistakes that are made in the bracket. This one for me this year is definitely a glaring one.
I will say it is a moneymaker because you're going to watch Iota Sumo play Cade Cunningham in the Sweet 16.
Hopefully.
So,
that would be a very good matchup for sure. Ernest, what were your thoughts on your Texas Longhorns? Oh.
I mean, fantastic turnout for the Longhorns. I actually love the road for the Texas Longhorns. All the other teams are going to battle out in every other region. It's Texas's to lose, in my opinion. I'm not big on Alabama.
Texas,
and I'm not big on Michigan. So those are the two teams I wanted. So that's perfect. I don't know if they deserve to be a 3 seed, but we'll take it. Big 12 champs, right to the Final Four.
Big 12 champions with an asterisk.
There's no asterisks on that championship.
There is an asterisk.
No.
So let's move into actually who's in the tournament. So who is your biggest snub? I'm going to give you guys a list of the first 4 that were out. I think a lot of people were pretty surprised that Louisville is not in the tournament. Colorado State had a very nice year. St. Louis had some issues, but they definitely had a case as well. And I didn't really think that there was a major case for Ole Miss getting into the tournament, but they had them there in the first 4 out. Paul, I'll start with you. Who is your biggest snub?
I'm just going to be honest here. I didn't really think there was one this year, to be honest with you. You can talk about Louisville, but I'm not going to sit here and bang a table for a team that went 1-6 when they had the chances. I'm still shocked Syracuse got in. I'll say that. But we'll get into that, I guess. But I don't really think there is a snub this year, honestly. To be perfectly honest with you, I feel comfortable with those 4 teams being out, and the last 4 that got in. Make the case which one to take out of there of the last 4 that got in, and I just don't see a case for Louisville.
Yeah, I think the issue with Louisville is because they went out so early in the ACC tournament and they lost to Duke, and it wasn't really a close game when they played them. I think that ultimately hurt them. Whereas if you look at a team like Louisville, who was one of those last 4 in, even though they lost in the Pac-12 quarterfinals to Oregon State goes on and wins the conference anyways. So really you lost to the champ in your conference. So I think that's kind of the argument there when it comes to those 2 teams. Davis, who for you would have been the biggest snub, if any?
I don't really have a snub. I agree with Paul. Well, I can't really say there's a snub when Oregon State and who else won their tournament?
Georgetown won yesterday.
Georgetown won.
Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech was going to get in.
You're right.
But Georgetown and Oregon State, I mean, they upset Colorado and Louisville. They would have been in if Creighton and Colorado would have won yesterday.
Yeah, and that's the issue is you had some of these teams that were able to knock off. Colorado was going to get in anyways, so if they go and win that game, you're probably not seeing Oregon State getting into the tournament. Georgetown definitely didn't have the record, but then you go and win the Big East tournament, and that gets you the auto bid as well. Ernest, was there any snub for you?
I think the only one is Colorado State. If Colorado State, we didn't get it, and it's really like everybody else is saying, Colorado State's the only team that I think would be the next one not. I don't think Louisville should be first alternate, in my opinion.
Jhett, what about you? Any snubs?
I don't know if it's necessarily a snub, but St. Louis definitely, now that I'm looking at it, probably had the best case to get in. They finished the year losing in the Atlantic 10 tournament to UMass, but before that game, they'd rattled off 8 straight victories. 1 or 2 of them include against VCU and St. Bonaventure, and they opened their season with a win against Memphis. So they really do have a pretty good case to have been in this tournament. So that's tough to see them go, but that is what it is.
Yeah, I will say
sure.
there's a team missing on the list, and that's Belmont, who got upset by Morehead State in their conference final. They went 26-1. I mean, what if let's take a look here real quick. Gonzaga, if they would have lost to BYU, almost identical records, except Gonzaga has all those wins against the top 10, but still Belmont and Gonzaga, kind of the same team. I'm not going to say like caliber wise, but like record wise and schedule wise.
Yeah, I mean, I like the bracket overall. I think they did a good job this year of including teams like Drake. I was surprised that it got that close with them. I thought that they shouldn't have even been in that first 4 out because, I mean, they only lost 4 games all year. 2 of those are to Loyola Chicago, and you also beat them at some point in the year as well. So I thought that they should have got in at a better seed than they're at, but obviously the committee really doesn't like small schools. You've seen it time and time again that these bigger conferences are going to get 7, 8, 9, 10 or 10 teams in, and then you're unlikely to get more than 1 if you're at smaller school. Out of the first 4 out, the last 4 in, you've got Michigan State, who, I mean, it's basically that win against Michigan is really what gets them in, I think. If they didn't have that Michigan win, they're probably going to be in the first 4 out. UCLA, despite losing to Oregon State wins the conference. So, and the game went to overtime, so it was close. Wichita State was one that people were a little bit upset about at just 16-5, but I think they overall deserve to get in. And then you have Drake as well. So before we move over to actually breaking down the bracket now, Paul, who's it sponsored by?
Living My Best Cigar Life. You can check them out at livingmybestcigarlife.com. They just opened their first physical location in Philadelphia. You guys can check that out. Anytime you're ordering, use My Best Cigar Life in all caps. You'll get $10 off your first order. And they got everything you need. So cigars, humidors, accessories, anything you can imagine. So give them a check out there. They're a great sponsor for us, and real happy they opened their first physical location.
Definitely. We're definitely glad to be partnered with them. Ernest, his connection is kind of cutting in and out, but it says TV payouts are gold for the NCAA, and that definitely factors into it every year. But let's start by looking at the West region of the bracket. This is the one where I think people are pretty divided on. They're a little bit unsure as to whether or not Gonzaga has a really tough road or whether or not they got a little bit of an easier path. Obviously, they have that play-in game of Norfolk State and Appalachian State. Both teams that won their conferences, but overall records aren't too crazy. That 8-9 game is going to be a really interesting one between Oklahoma, who's beaten countless Big 12 teams, as well as Missouri, who's been in and out of the rankings all year, and it's going to be an interesting game there. Then you've got Virginia as the 4 taking on Ohio, and Creighton versus UC Santa Barbara. Davis, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on the top half of the West region?
This makes me laugh because I hate OU, and they just got the worst possible placement. They have to play Missouri, and if they get past them, which is doubtful, they'll have to play Gonzaga. I mean, I think there are 3 upsets here, at least. Well, not at least, but there's 3 upsets here. It's going to be Missouri, Ohio, and UC Santa Barbara, because we don't know what Virginia's situation is with COVID. And Creighton, they don't look good. And UC Santa Barbara looks great. And like I said, Oklahoma just hasn't been playing good down the stretch. They got swept by my team in 72 hours. Missouri, they kind of showed out in the SEC tournament. They kind of, I thought they were going to be a 10 seed, but they bumped their resume up to a 9. And Gonzaga is just going to come out of the West. We know that for sure. But yeah, that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting 8-9 game, and I wouldn't say necessarily that Gonzaga is going to roll over whatever team wins that game, just because they really haven't played the stiffest competition over the last couple months. They played BYU in their final. BYU showed that they can get exposed at times. I mean, they ultimately ended up coming back to win that game, but it does show that Gonzaga is beatable this year. I like your point about Virginia.
Real quick, both OU and Missouri, they love shooting the 3 ball, just like Gonzaga. So I'll just say that.
And that's what I mean. If they're hitting those threes, I mean, they could very easily be sending Gonzaga home on an off shooting night. So going to be an interesting matchup there. Virginia, yeah, we don't know what's happening with them in regards to COVID. And Ohio's a team that I really like. You guys should be going and checking out bluecollarmg.com. We're breaking down all 68 teams for you guys. They're going to be released over the next 48 hours or so. Ohio is one of those teams that was recently released already. So go and look at their resume. It's a team that I'd be a little bit concerned about. And I like what Davis said about Creighton, because you just lost to Georgetown by 25 in your conference final. I mean, they went on, I think, a 34-3 run in that game. Like, that's really concerning heading into the NCAA tournament. Jett, what do you think of this?
Yeah, what pops out to me is, and it seems to be the 5-12 game every year, is UC Santa Barbara has been a phenomenal team the entire year. I don't see a whole lot of holes in their game. Past that, I really don't think that anybody in this section of the West has a chance to knock Gonzaga off unless Virginia does get cleared and is healthy. I think they might have a very off chance of doing it just because of their defensive game and their ability to kind of make teams slow everything down. And that can be a problem for Gonzaga. But yeah, outside of that, I feel like this is a decently easy path for Gonzaga to get through, even though there are some quality teams here.
Yeah, I think when it comes to this side of the bracket, people are saying Gonzaga has the easy path because of the top half of it. We're going to get into the lower half of it, where if Gonzaga does get through these first few games, they'll have an Elite 8 matchup against some quality teams, depending who gets out of there. Paul, what are your thoughts on this one?
I'm with you guys on this one, and I've never believed in Virginia. You know, they burnt me. They won a title, but they've also got knocked out in the first round. I just, you know what I mean? Like, and that's them to a T, because when you play that defensive style, that possession game, I mean, you're basically saying to beat Gonzaga, they're going to have to hold them to 60, 65 in that area. And that's just not going to, it's just not going to happen. It's not, you know what I mean? Like, they're going to, they'll handle the top side of this bracket fairly easy. I think so.
I mean, one thing I'll make note of when it comes to Virginia on this side, they played Gonzaga earlier in the year. That game was not close. It was not close at all. And actually, Gonzaga won by 23 points, and they put up 98 on them. Yeah. So,
and actually, Ernest put a good comment in there. All the other top 3 seeds out west, Gonzaga's already played and beat. You know what I mean? So they've already seen him. They have. I mean, he will say that. He's right about that.
Definitely. I mean, I think Gonzaga doesn't get enough credit because they have the non-conference or the conference that they do. But that being said, they did have another ranked team in there this year. They didn't stumble. They handled St. Mary's, who's their biggest rival, probably in the conference pretty easily both times. So when we're looking at the other half of that bracket, so that first game, I mean, the Wichita State and Drake play-in game, I think is going to be a great one to watch. I'm definitely going to be tuning into that. I might be making some last-second bracket adjustments depending who gets out of that game. The winner of that's going to have to go and play Evan Mobley in USC, so that's not going to be a great matchup for them. Then you've got Kansas as a 3-seed, generous 3-seed in my mind. I haven't been a huge fan of Kansas all year. I know they beat Baylor, but they've also looked very poor for a significant stretch of games as well. Eastern Washington's a team to watch out for, another team that we've been breaking down in our articles. And then that Oregon VCU, that's going to be a very interesting one. Oregon just lost to Oregon State. and then you have VCU there. And then that Iowa Grand Canyon game. I'm not going to say that there's an upset there, but I am saying when that one came out, there's a 15/2 that happens every couple years. Yep. And there's 2 of those in this bracket that I see that I'm not sure if I'm going to have the stones to really put the 15, but we'll see what happens there. Jhett, I'll get your thoughts first on the bottom half of this bracket.
Yeah, I think whoever comes out of that 11 game is going to probably beat USC, actually, because I think either team's going to come in with a bit of momentum, given the fact that they've been playing. Sorry, I'm getting some echo here.
Yep.
Do you hear that? Okay.
I think you're good.
Yeah, so given the fact that like Drake isn't losing to really anybody, and Wichita State, I mean, they had a tough loss in their conference tournament, but a win against Drake, I think, brings you right back mentally and fires you up for your next game. So I'm really keeping an eye on that one. I think Kansas, just as you said, Kenny, is overrated. And I don't know. I don't think I'm as concerned about the Grand Canyon game for Iowa. I think Garza's got a lot to prove.
Yeah, I would have to really dive into Grand Canyon's roster to see what they have in the way of bigs, because, I mean, we saw Garza playing against Kofi last night. I mean, he was getting manhandled by him at times, but Garza's never been a defender. He's always been a guy that's going to go and get his on the offensive end. Davis, what are your thoughts on the bottom half of the West region?
I don't really see any upsets here except VCU over Oregon. Unless Wichita State can get out of there and beat USC, I don't really see that happening. But I do see a good matchup when Kansas plays USC in the Sweet 16. I really like that matchup for USC because David McCormick versus Evan Mobley. That's gonna be a great game to watch. But I think Iowa comes out of this. Actually, no, not Iowa. Kansas. I have Kansas coming out of this top half.
So Kansas probably meeting Gonzaga, depending on how things shape up there.
Yes.
When I think about USC, this gives me a lot of DeAndre Ayton Arizona year, where everyone was taking Arizona because they're like, oh, well, they've got a guy who's like top 5 in the draft. Like they're for sure going to win that game. And it's a little bit concerning for me. So I'm going to keep an eye on that one. Once again, it's going to come down to who comes out of that Wichita State and Drake game, because I think they're 2 teams that play completely different styles, and depending on who matches up with USC. Paul, I'll give you the last word on the West region.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm going to take I'll take that upset right now. I think whoever wins that Drake Wichita game will beat SC. I like that. Just both their mentalities, and where USC is kind of mentally soft. I feel like that those 2 teams are mentally tough, and they'll get the job done. And I like Oregon over VCU. Honestly, I've watched VCU play a couple times this year, and I just I don't know. I like Oregon to handle them.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of good games in the West region that we're going to get in the first round and potential second round matchups. So that's going to be a fun side of the bracket to watch. Now we're going to move over to the East region. This one is headed up by Michigan, who dropped their game yesterday to Ohio State. Ohio State almost blew that game, though, because they looked like they were in control, and Michigan stormed back late. They're going to play the winner of Mount St. Mary's and Texas Southern. I mean, I think we all assume that Michigan's going to win. We've seen one seed in the history of the tournament lose. So if you're picking your bracket, I think you'd be pretty safe taking Michigan there. Then we've got a very interesting LSU versus St. Bonaventure game. LSU went all the way to the SEC final. They almost upset Alabama today, came up 1 point short, and St. Bonaventure won their tournament today. Then you got Florida State, who got upset by Georgia Tech in the final of the ACC tournament. They're taking on UNC Greensboro. And then you've got Colorado, who went all the way to the final of the Pac-12, losing to Oregon State. They've got a tough matchup against Georgetown, who just won the Big East title, surprising everyone, but Patrick Ewing at the helm really put them over the top. So, Paul, I'm going to give you the first word on the East here. What are your thoughts on this side of the bracket?
This ought to be a fun side of the bracket right here. This should be fun. I like that LSU team. I think they're long. They're athletic. They'll give St. Bonaventure's trouble. I like that matchup. Florida State, they should bounce back against there. But Georgetown, I mean, you're playing with house money now. Like you have absolutely nothing to lose. So I look for them to come out and just lay it all out there in that 12-5 game. Even though I do like that Colorado team, but I mean, that's just a weird matchup for them to get in that first round, especially with a team that they have absolutely nothing to lose. So I like that one. If you're going to go 12-5, give me Georgetown there.
Yeah, they're definitely going to be coming in with a ton of momentum. I will say and make note of this, Georgetown will need to be leading that game down the stretch, because if they have to start fouling Colorado, the number one team in the nation at the free throw line is Colorado there. Jett, I'll go to you next. What are your thoughts on the East?
Well, I'm a little bit concerned with Michigan with Liver's situation. In saying that, I've really liked the Bonnies all year, and I think they can beat LSU, and I also think they can beat an undermanned Michigan. Past that point, it's going to be tough. I think you're probably going to end up looking at a Florida State coming out of the bottom there. But, yeah, I will not be surprised if the Bonnies are in the Sweet 16.
I like that. St. Bonaventure, Jett really likes them there in that side of the bracket. Davis, I'll go to you for the last word on the top half of the East.
You know who I wouldn't be surprised being the Sweet 16?
Ooh.
LSU.
Ooh.
Yeah.
LSU.
Yeah.
They
I
like to play
think
fast.
either of those teams can beat Michigan without Livers.
Yes.
They don't play defense, but they can shoot the lights out of a team. And Michigan, they have struggles keeping up with people who can score a lot of points. That was shown, I think, at the Minnesota game when they lost. And that was shown last night with Ohio State, even though they came back. But I can't agree with you, Paul. I don't think Georgetown can upset Colorado. I mean, there's a chance, but, I mean, Colorado just came off a loss, and
I agree. I agree with you, David. I'm just saying, like, they have nothing to lose. Like, that's what happened against Creighton. They had absolutely nothing to lose, and they came out and blew them out. Like, you never know.
I don't think anyone has nothing. I think everyone has nothing to lose except Gonzaga in this tournament.
I don't know.
This is a really stacked tournament. Let's just be honest. This is one of the greatest tournaments I've seen, like, reaction wise.
Yeah, I thought 9 was low. I thought 9 was low for LSU.
Yeah,
I thought they were going to be like a 7 or
maybe sneak in and be a 6.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing about Georgetown is, they beat Villanova. Obviously, Villanova's missing 2 of their best players due to injury, so they pick up the 1-point win there. Then they go on and beat Seton Hall. Then they go in and blow out Creighton. That's why I would agree with Paul I just want to see – I want to see early in that game, because Georgetown could come out and get out to like a 12-2 run or something crazy, and then this could be a blowout, and it's going to be a very interesting game to watch there.
I think it's 50-50 with that Georgetown-Colorado game.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
Because, I mean, you never know. Like, I think I called the last 3 Gonzaga games they won.
Yeah.
Villanova – who'd they play the second? Seton Hall, and then Creighton. I'm pretty sure I got all 3 of those, and I've actually kind of rode the bandwagon. So we'll see when I give up my bracket.
Definitely, we're going to be keeping an eye on that one. We're going to be breaking it down further tomorrow night, on Tuesday night when it comes to this side of the bracket. So stay tuned for that. When it comes to the bottom half of this bracket, BYU as a 6 was a little bit surprising for me. I thought that they would maybe be around the 7, maybe 8 seed range. So to have them at 6, they're going to have an absolute battle in that first game, because Michigan State UCLA is going to be a great play-in game to watch. Michigan State, as I said, just beat a good Michigan team. And UCLA, they had a good year, but ultimately fell early in the Pac-12, so they're going to be pretty well rested for that one. Then you've got Texas as the 3. They've got Abilene Christian, and then we've got UConn as the 7, taking on Maryland as the 10. And then my other 2-15 game that I want to keep an eye on is Alabama and Iona, Rick Pitino's Iona team. They seem to be on a mission from God, as Paul likes to say. So, Paul, I'm going to go to you first. What do you think of the bottom half of the East?
I mean, you can't ever beat a drunk Rick Pitino on on a bender through Indianapolis. But yeah, no, I think Alabama will handle them. I know where you're coming from, Kenny, but I think they'll handle them. That Connecticut and Maryland game was a very interesting one to me too, because I feel like those teams could beat anybody really, but they could also flame out real quick. But Ernest Texas team is I think in a good position in this side of the bracket, honestly. I don't really know what to expect out of that BYU team either. They look good against Gonzaga there. But they coughed it up. I mean, you can say you look good all you want, but at the end they coughed it up. And I don't know. The bottom side of this bracket, I would take Texas out of this side of the bracket, honestly, right now, just looking at it.
Yeah, I see about 2 or 3 teams that I really like on the bottom half of the East bracket. It's just going to come down to who gets hot at the right time. Davis, I'll go to you next. What are your thoughts on the bottom half?
There is not a single upset in this bottom half. Michigan State and UCLA are frauds. BYU has the tallest person in this tournament in Harms, and Texas is going to have a really tough task trying to stop him if they meet up in the second round. I have BYU. I think BYU is going to upset Texas to go to the Sweet 16 just because of Matt Harms. I mean, we saw in the game against Oklahoma State last night, they can't keep that. They continue to foul when they really shouldn't, or stupid fouls is what I like to call it. Stupid fouls that get you in trouble early or in late in games. I think Kai Jones ended with 3 fouls, and their other big, Jericho Sims, fouled out. I just don't think Texas has enough power to get to the Sweet 16 over BYU. And then we look at the bottom of it. I think Bama's just going to roll, just like their name, Roll Tide. So they're going to roll through this bracket.
Fair enough. Jett, I'll go to you for the final word on the bottom half of the East.
I think if I'm going to debate a 2 falling, it's probably going to be Alabama. I'm going to keep an eye on Iona and see if I can find any reason why they might actually beat Alabama. Stay tuned.
Rick Pitino.
Yeah, stay tuned. As for BYU, I'm interested to see who wins out of Michigan State and UCLA. I kind of think UCLA is frauds, to be honest with you. But I think Michigan State's the kind of team that just sort of buys into Izzo, and they can win games just because of the coaching and the preparation for games. So if Michigan State can get into that game, they could have a very good chance to beat BYU. I don't know that they have as much of a shot to beat Texas, however. So I like Texas coming out of there. And then to be honest with you, I think UConn Maryland is a complete coin toss. So yeah, I got to go with Texas coming out of all that, though.
Yeah, I think overall, looking at that UConn Maryland game, it's going to be pretty split. I won't be surprised if when we see the numbers come out that Michigan State and UCLA, they're going to be favored over BYU, even though they are going to be an 11 seed. I think a lot of people, just based off name recognition, are going to take them, especially the casual fans. So that's going to be one to keep an eye on. I'd like to keep an eye on the point spread too, just to see what Vegas thoughts are, depending who gets that game. But we're going to head over to the South region now. And this is where Baylor ends up. Baylor obviously losing to Oklahoma State. They lost a couple games towards the end of the year. They were undefeated for a lot of the year. They're going to get Hartford in the first round. Once again, another 1 versus 16. I wouldn't be putting too much weight into that. Now we get to UNC versus Wisconsin, and I mean that's going to be a fun game to watch. Shout out to Will, who says UNC going all the way. Kenny, I don't quite see them going that far, if far at all. So then we've got Purdue, the 4 seed there. That's going to be an interesting game against North Texas. North Texas just beat Western Kentucky to win their conference. And then you've got Villanova as a 5. many thought Villanova would be in the top 2 seeds before injuries kind of derailed their season. So they're going to be limping in against that Winthrop team. That's another one to keep an eye out for, at least in my eyes, when it comes to upsets. Jhett, I'll start with you. What do you think of the top half of the South?
First thing that comes out to me is I think Winthrop wins this game against Villanova. I think they're just too hurt right now. Baylor obviously is going to have no problem with a 16 seed. I do think North Carolina is the better team out of them in Wisconsin, but not good enough to beat Baylor. Then Purdue, North Texas is an interesting game, but I'm going to have to go with Purdue there. And honestly, if Winthrop continued their run past Purdue, that also would not shock me, but that'd be a tall ask.
It is always a tall ask taking a double-digit seed to make it past the first week in March Madness. But hey, every year there's usually an 11 or a 12 or even a 13 that you see in there. So if you're gonna be doing multiple brackets, I know that I've already signed up for a lot of different bracket challenges. So there's going to be a little bit of money thrown around as far as brackets go. Not with the BCMG one, though, so go and sign up for that free bracket challenge. Another shameless plug. Paul, I'll go to you next.
I'm 100% with Jhett. I when I wrote the write-up on Villanova last night, it's not only the injuries. They are in a major shooting slump. I mean, major. Like, they can't hit water if they fell out of a boat right now. And I like Winthrop. I like them in the conference tournaments. I'm definitely taking that one. And I'm on the other side of that, UNC Wisconsin. I just don't believe in UNC at all. At least Wisconsin has played the top tier teams in the Big Ten, and they haven't beat any of them. They're like that team right in the middle where they handled the bottom, but they got beat by the top. But I just feel like I don't know. I just don't trust UNC enough to take them there. Baylor's going to handle Hartford, even though that is a great story for them. Their first time going to the tournament and everything. That's a great story for them. And I'll roll with Purdue on that one too. So that's where I'm at.
All right, so I guess I'm the only one that might be on that North Texas wagon, so we're going to keep an eye on that one with Purdue. Davis, I'll let you have the final thoughts on the top half of the South.
Baylor's rolling through this. North Carolina and Wisconsin are frauds. I think Wisconsin's more of a fraud than North Carolina is, so give me North Carolina to get out of that game. Now, I agree with you, Jhett, and before I came on the show, I did fill out a bracket. I couldn't stop myself. And I have Winthrop in the Sweet 16. Yeah. They're going to beat number 5 Nova and number 4 Purdue to get to the Sweet 16. I mean, I see it happening. They're 23-1. They shoot the lights out, and they're really good on defense. And they do this switch where every 5 minutes they bring in another 5, and then the other 5 minutes they switch them out. It's really unique strategy for basketball, and you guys should watch up before the tournament starts, and get to know this the strategy that they implement.
Yeah, I think when it comes to UNC and Wisconsin, it's ultimately going to boil down to rebounds in that game, because UNC is the 3rd best rebounding team in the country and 1st overall in offensive boards. When you look at Wisconsin, they're 261st in rebounding. So they're going in there with a 40-30 season advantage as far as North Carolina goes. That being said, they also shoot way better than them. So it's truly going to be an inside versus outside battle. I think it's going to come down to how many threes does Wisconsin make to really give them a run. That's going to be a fun game to watch. I'm, of course, going to take Wisconsin because the Tar Heels can I'm not going to say a bad word. Anyway, so we're going to head to the bottom of the South region. We got Texas Tech as a 6 seed. I thought they might be a 5, but they ultimately end up as a 6. This is a nightmare for them getting Utah State as the 11.
Yeah, tough game.
I wrote about it in my article that I thought Texas Tech could be a dark horse team to maybe make an Elite 8 Final Four run. And then I saw Utah State, and I'm like, oh, no. Like, I don't even know if they're going to get out of that game. That being said, if they do, I like whoever gets Arkansas. Arkansas, Colgate's going to be a tough matchup for them. They just won their conference tournament today. And then you got Florida, Trey Mann. he's one of those guys to keep an eye on because he's a guy that could maybe win you a couple games just because he's going to pour in 30 for a team. They're taking on Virginia Tech, who are frauds in my opinion. And then you got Ohio State, Oral Roberts. This isn't a 15/2 that I'm looking at in particular, but Paul, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on the bottom half of the South?
I love Texas Tech until they dropped the next line, and it was Utah State. And I'm like, man, that's a terrible matchup for them. You know, I was kind of surprised that Florida and Virginia Tech got matched up. That to me, like, I don't know. I like Florida there. We've been saying it all year. Virginia Tech's frauds. That Oral Roberts does have the #1 scorer in the country, though, just if people want to know. I mean, you know, some of these tournament games, I mean, you know, the guy gets hot, he drops 40, 45, and I mean, it's a game. And Ohio State got pushed to the wire, I mean, a bunch down all this tournament, this whole entire time. Well, they had 2 overtime games in the last 3 days, something like that, right? And so, you know what I mean? Like, they're going to be, you know, they're going to be a little winded coming in there. So, wouldn't surprise me if Texas Tech came out of the bottom of this, if they get past Utah State, if they get past that first upset. We saw Arkansas today. I mean, I seen Texas Tech. I think they could exploit what Arkansas doesn't do well. So,
yeah, I mean, overall, when I'm looking at this side of the bracket, there's a lot of interesting games here. Texas Tech early betting line on that is -4.5 against Utah State. That might be one that I take Utah State at +4.5. So that's one to keep an eye on. Davis, I'll go to you next.
Well, I think I'm an expert in this half region. I've seen 3 of these teams play in person in Texas Tech, Arkansas, and Oral Roberts, which all 3 teams kept it close against Oklahoma State. I watched Max Abrams, the top leading scorer, drop 35 on us and keep Oral Roberts in the game. And I think they'll do that against Ohio State. So whatever the spread is in that game, take Oral Roberts to cover because they have the leading scorer in the NCAA. Now, who's getting out of this? I think Arkansas has the power to pull to the Final Four, in my opinion. I think they could go to the Final Four anywhere in this bracket, wherever they got placed. And I also think that of Texas Tech. So whoever is winning that 6-3 matchup in the second round is going to the Final Four, in my opinion.
I like what you had said about the point line there. From what I'm seeing, Oral Roberts is +17 in that game.
That.
So that might be one to keep an eye on. I mean, they also make the most threes in the NCAA, and they're 7th in 3-point percentage. So I don't know if they have the firepower to beat Ohio State, but do I think they could definitely keep it within a dozen? I think they could for sure. We see it all the time where teams get pushed to the limit there. Jhett, I'll give you the final word on the bottom half of the South.
So there's 2 spots in this that really kind of stop me from just making definitive picks. Obviously, that 6-11 game is very tough. Texas Tech, Utah State, that's going to be an absolute battle. Past that, I think Florida and Ohio State are going to end up matched up against each other, and I have a tough time picking that one as well. I'm going to have to really pick through stats and figure out which way I want to go with it. If Texas Tech does get through, I think that they should have no problem with Arkansas, because I think with Arkansas, their best thing about their game is also their worst, in that they play so fast and they're so athletic that sometimes it can almost lead to mistakes. It can lead to turnovers, and they can end up beating themselves. And you can't afford to do that against a team like Texas Tech. That 6-11 is really holding me up.
Yeah, I would agree on that for sure. Arkansas is no guarantee to get out of that 3-14 game either, given that Colgate is 9th in the country in field goal percentage. So they shoot the ball really efficiently. It could be a scary matchup for them there. Once again, do I have the stones to really take a 14 over a 3? Probably not. So I'm probably going to be rolling with Arkansas there, but keep an eye on who wins that 6-11 game, because they could give Arkansas fits. And so now we're going to move over. We're going to talk about the final part of the bracket. That is the Midwest region, and it is headed up by Illinois, the winners of the Big Ten this year. That was a hell of a game today against Ohio State. And this is a team that I really like. They get Drexel in the first round. I fully anticipate that this game's going to be over at halftime. And then we've got that 8-9 game. I wrote about Loyola Chicago in my article, and I said whoever is that, 1 or 2 seed that sees them as a 7 through 10, wherever they ended up, they are going to be in trouble, because if Loyola gets out of that Georgia Tech game, that's not a team that I want to play. They're a team that knows how to get to the Final Four. So that's one to keep an eye on. Then we've got the 4 seed Oklahoma State. They're taking on Liberty. I think this is the best 13 seed. I think I'd still roll with Oklahoma State because of Cade, but that's going to be a scary matchup for them. And then Tennessee, we don't know the injury status of John Fulkerson. He was ruled out of the rest of the SEC tournament. His face looked mangled after that elbow that he took from the guy on Florida. I think they said broken orbital bone and a bunch of other issues there. And they're going to have to take on Oregon State, who just won the Pac-12 tournament. They just beat UCLA, Oregon, and Colorado. 3 teams in 3 days. That might be a 12-5 to keep an eye on. Paul, what are your thoughts on the Midwest?
It's tough. I'm really hoping for that, Illinois, Oklahoma State, Sweet 16. I really am. I think that's to be the most entertaining part of this. Tennessee, I love Tennessee. I've liked Tennessee all year, but it really does come down to his injury. I mean, as far as how far they could go. And you're right, Kenny, about that Loyola team. You've been right about them for a long time, really, honestly. And then, Illinois is going to be – you saw a little bit of it today with Ohio State where they get into this they don't know whether they're inside team, outside team, what they're doing. So a team like Loyola Chicago could give them a bunch of fits. But I still like an Illinois, Oklahoma State Sweet 16 matchup out of this.
Jhett, I'll go to you next. What are your thoughts on the top of the Midwest?
So that 8-9 game, I wouldn't want to play either of those teams. Georgia Tech's one of the hottest teams in college basketball right now. And I mean, as you said, we've been banging the drum on Loyola. However, I do think Illinois, in my opinion anyways, has the second best chance to get into the Final Four of the top 4 seeds. Just behind Gonzaga. Tennessee, you got to worry about Fulkerson. Oregon State was really fraudy until they got to their conference tournament, and then they turned it on. But you got to wonder if maybe the Magic's going to run out or not. And then at the bottom of this portion here, I really like Oklahoma State. I'm buying in. I'm all in on the Cade Cunningham experience. I think that they can roll Liberty. I think they can beat Tennessee or Oregon State. And then I think they can give a real game to Illinois.
Yeah, this is going to be a very interesting top half of the Midwest. Davis, I'll give you the final word. You only get a couple seconds, though, given that we don't need to hear about what Cade's going to be eating for his pregame meal.
I mean, I can give it to you if you want. No. I will just say this. You don't see a 4 seed that often have net wins, top 25 net wins, because that's what they look at is net. And here are their wins against top 25 net rankings. Number 2, Baylor. Number 11, Kansas. Number 14, Arkansas. Number 17, Texas Tech twice. Number 21, Texas. And number 23, West Virginia twice in 1 week. I mean, what else do you want us to do? I mean, geez. Oh, we beat Oklahoma twice, too. We literally knocked them to a 9 seed.
The last team that ran off those kind of wins in a 2-week stretch was UConn the year Kemba and them made their run. So,
yep,
whatever that's worth out there.
Yep, six AP top 25 wins in 19
weeks.
days, and UConn did it in 18 days when they went on win the title. Now, I will say in this bracket, though, I do like Oregon State upsetting Tennessee. I think Tennessee, they're going to be without what was it, Fulkerson? right?
I think he's got to be out because
Gotta be.
he couldn't even see anything out of
Yeah.
that side of his face. Like, I don't know how he'd be ready for that game.
And I mean, I like Loyola to give a real test to Illinois. And if you live in Illinois, you're going to love this matchup. Illinois versus Loyola Chicago. But I do see Illinois and Oklahoma State matching up. This is what the NCAA wanted. That's why we're a 4 seed ultimately. Is to have Io DeSumo play Cade Cunningham in the Sweet 16.
Yep. I would agree.
Definitely, that would be a huge ratings draw. I think it could ultimately go a long way in AO's draft stock, how that game goes as well. We probably haven't seen a game like that in the NCAA tournament where you've had 2 guys that are projected top 5 picks since De'Aaron Fox and Lonzo Ball went at it, and Fox made him look bad, and it really improved his draft stock. So that's going to be an interesting matchup if we get it in the Sweet 16.
I hope we do.
It definitely would be fun to watch. But we'll talk now about the bottom half of the Midwest. San Diego State is the 6th seed. They got a tough first-round matchup against Syracuse. Buddy Boeheim definitely played well in the ACC tournament. They were very close to knocking off Virginia. Last-second shot for them to send them home, but they still get into the tournament. West Virginia limping in a little bit. They've got a tough Morehead State team. Morehead State did upset in their conference final. Then you've got Clemson as the 7. Shout out to Connor Pedersen, student manager for Clemson. He's been doing film on Rutgers over the last number of days, so watch out, Rutgers. And then we've got Houston as the 2 seed, probably the weakest 2 seed, taking on a Cleveland State team that I don't think anyone knows anything about, except for myself, because I wrote about them on bluecollarmg.com. So I'll give you the first word, Davis. What are your thoughts on the bottom of the Midwest?
I really like San Diego State to come out of this. They are looking great. They're in a bad conference, but they're a really good team. I can see them coming out of this this bottom of the Midwest and matching up with either Illinois or Oklahoma State. And that's what I think about it. I think Houston might get upset by Clemson or Rutgers. I don't think Houston's all that, especially because they're coming from a bad conference and they have a couple losses in there. But I'd watch out for West Virginia. They could get hot. I mean, Miles McBride, he's really good. Derek Culver leads the Big 12 in rebounds. I just watch out for them as well.
Jhett, I'll go to you next.
I've got my eye on Houston because I do think that they can beat Clemson or Rutgers, to be honest with you. And then at that point, it's anybody's ball game, whether you're getting San Diego State or West Virginia. My concern with West Virginia is that they're kind of coming in a little bit sputtering. I still think that they're better than San Diego State, even though I really do like San Diego State. But I don't know, like you can't afford to have average play in this tournament, and San Diego State could take advantage of that, assuming that they can get through Buddy Boeheim and the Syracuse Orange. But yeah, I think, I'm not going to lie, I think I'm going to go with Houston coming out of this group.
Oh, I'll go to you next.
Well, you know, I'm going with my boys, obviously, but to seriously break it down, you know, I couldn't believe Syracuse got in as the 11, just straight up in as an 11, when, you know, they don't really have a much better resume than Louisville does. I'm guessing that like 2-point win over North Carolina is what got them in. But whatever, regardless, they're in. So, but I like Houston coming out of the bottom. That San Diego State team is a very tough out. You know, and honestly, West Virginia, it's fits and starts on offense. It's turnovers sometimes, it's foul trouble sometimes. You know, they have a myriad of things that could derail them. You know, but of all the bottom of this, there's no team in there that I'm like West Virginia can't beat. So you know what I mean? Like that's where I'm gonna end up with it anyway. So it doesn't matter to me.
I'm a big Bob Huggins guy. He's definitely the best coach in this part of the bracket. People would say Jim Boeheim, but just because he plays 2-3 zone 40 minutes a game doesn't mean that he's necessarily the best coach. I'm going to give it to Huggins there. But I do think that this is going to be I could see 5 different teams coming out of this side of the bracket. Like we could easily see Clemson go on a run as a 7 seed. I mean, they've beaten quality teams.
Mm-hmm.
They've been flat against some teams, which is what would hurt them ultimately. But then another team like Rutgers, they played a tough Big Ten schedule. They know what it takes to beat quality teams as well. So, I mean, this is a true toss-up for me. You've got Houston, the weakest 2 seed likely. San Diego State, I'm a big fan of theirs, but do they have an Elite 8 run in them? That's yet to be determined. So that breaks everything down as far as the bracket tonight, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to be here all week giving you guys coverage in regards to that. Before we get into what we're going to be doing all week, I'll let you guys do your sign-offs. Paul, where can the folks find you at home?
Just find me on Twitter at SteelCurtainPEH. We'll be putting stuff out there, but get signed up, guys. It's free money. Get signed up for the brackets. Put it out there. We'll definitely pub you everywhere if you win. So, it's worth it. It's absolutely free. So get signed up.
Davis, where can the folks find you at home?
You can find me at ddog_1123 on Instagram and Twitter. All I'm going to say is I'm going to give a hot take real quick. None of the top 2 seeds in this bracket are going to win the national championship. I will say that. You want to know the combined national championships between all the top 2 seeds?
There's probably like 2.
Yes, it's 2.
Hey.
One Ohio State in 1960 and Michigan when they won it all in 89. That's it. Out of the top eight teams, that's what you have. And I don't think they have the firepower. Maybe Gonzaga does it this year. We'll see. Maybe a Big Ten team can pull through finally since Michigan State won it all in 2000. But we'll see. March is crazy. Let's go.
Yeah.
Jhett, where can the folks find you at home?
At Frostbite Pod on Twitter. You can also find us on Facebook, Frostbite Sports Podcast. I'm just going to leave it with this. I'm all in on the Zags this year. This is the year to get it done. The perfect season. And they finally get the respect that they deserve.
I have yet to determine what bandwagon I'm on. I thought about Tennessee, but with the Fulkerson injury, it's making it really tough for me to really hop on a wagon. But that being said, if you tune in tomorrow night on the Shooter Shoot Basketball Podcast Facebook page, I will be doing my official bracket selection and ultimately giving you the bandwagon that I will be hopping on this year, given that Duke is just horrendous and couldn't even make it into the first 4 out discussion. But that being said, we're also going to be live all week. BCMG will be live Tuesday and Wednesday night. Tuesday night, we're going to be breaking down all the games on the left half of the bracket. And then on Wednesday night, we'll break down all the games on the right half. We'll give you the stats you need to make the informed decision when it comes to those games. And then Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time, we will be making the official BCMG bracket selection. We'll all be giving our input in regards to this bracket, and then we'll ultimately see who's going to win the national championship because we couldn't get it wrong, right? And also be sure to check out bluecollarmg.com for all 68 teams being broken down for you. We've already got, I think, 30 plus up on the website. We've got more coming in for you. Those are all going to be there. They're going to break down some of the numbers, how teams got there, and where we ultimately see them falling. So be sure to check those out as well. And thank you, everyone who tuned in tonight. We really appreciate it. And be sure to enter the Blue Collar Media Group Bracket Challenge. We'll be making a post right after this show. So go ahead and sign up there, and we'll see you guys tomorrow night.